My job tonight is to talk about Mary, but I thought I'd begin with a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a farmer, Farmer Brown. Farmer Brown loved his apple orchards, and he worked hard to grow beautiful apples. One year, Farmer Brown had a bumper crop of apples. As he was picking them one day, he found a very large, beautiful red apple, the most perfect apple he'd ever grown. When Farmer Brown saw this perfect apple, he thought to himself, "This apple is fit for the king." He decided that he would take this perfect apple and travel all the way to the castle to present it to his king. Well, Farmer Brown set out on the long journey and eventually arrived at the castle. He entered the gates and went into the castle's garden. But when he stood before the steps leading up to the castle's massive door, he stopped. As he looked up at that castle with all its towers and turrets, its flags and imposing walls, a feeling of dread came over him. Suddenly, Farmer Brown felt very small and unimportant and even unworthy. He looked at his apple, which had seemed so perfect and large and beautiful to him when he was at home, and he began to think that maybe what he had to offer the king wasn't so wonderful after all. "I shouldn't have come," he told himself. "The king won't want to be bothered with me and my apple. He'll probably laugh at me for thinking my gift is good enough for him. Or maybe he'll become angry with me for taking up his time and throw me out." Standing there at the bottom of the steps, Farmer Brown began to panic. He lost his nerve completely and turned to leave. In his haste, he bumped into someone. "I'm terribly sorry," he began. "I didn't see you." Then he looked up and saw that he had bumped into a woman, a very beautiful woman. She smiled and said, "It was an accident, my son. Be at peace." Farmer Brown looked closely at the lovely lady and realized that she was none other than the Queen herself. "Oh, Your Majesty, I'm so sorry," he said. But the Queen merely smiled and asked, "What is troubling you, my son?" Farmer Brown showed her his beautiful apple. "I wanted to give this apple to the king, but now I'm afraid it isn't really a fine enough gift for him," he explained, hanging his head. "Come with me, my son," the Queen replied. Farmer Brown followed the Queen around the castle until they reached a small door near the back. The Queen led him into the castle and to the castle's kitchen. There she helped him cut up the apple and arrange it on a beautiful platter. She brought rose petals and added them to the platter as decoration. Then she took the farmer to the throne room of the king. "Your Majesty," the Queen said, "may I present to you Farmer Brown, who has come to offer you the finest apple in his orchard." She led Farmer Brown before the throne of the king. The king looked kindly at Farmer Brown. "You are welcome here, my son," he said. Farmer Brown bowed and held out the platter to the king, who smiled and thanked him. As he took a piece of apple, the king ate it, complimented Farmer Brown on his fine gift, and sent him on his way, filled with joy and peace. Farmer Brown returned happily to his home. Every year thereafter, he made the long journey to the castle to give the king his finest apples, and the Queen was always there to lead him before the throne. Yes, I was not born a sister, so there were times when I did things that I shouldn't have. You know, there were times like that when I needed to go tell my parents what had happened. You know something? I always told my mother first. I would go to my mom and I'd explain everything, all the mitigating circumstances, you know, everything. And then my mom would get the job of going and telling my dad for me. But sometimes she actually made me go with her, though. And she would be there with me while I told my dad. Now, I want to say, it's not that my dad is this horrible, unreasonable person, because he's really not. In fact, I can count on the fingers of one hand the times that I was really in trouble with my dad in my whole entire life. So it's got nothing to do with how my dad was. But somehow, I always felt better telling Mom first. She had a way of listening and kind of sorting me out before Dad got the news. And sometimes, in telling Mom, I'd find that I had worried over something so much and blown it so out of proportion. And she would be the one to say, you know, it's not that bad. It's going to be okay. You know, chill out, kid. After Mom would talk to me, she would actually have, instill the confidence in me to actually go tell my dad what was going on. And, it usually turned out just fine. But still, I just felt better if my mom was at my side or if I'd talked to her about it first. In the story that my wannabe friends there just acted out for you that I read to you, the Queen helped Farmer Brown find the confidence to go before the king, just like my mother helped me go before my father. And that's how Mary, the mother of Jesus, is for us. She's our mother. She's his mother. She's our mother too. Sometimes just like that farmer, we can feel really small and unimportant and unworthy. We remember how sinful we are. We remember the things that we've done wrong. Sometimes we really blow them out of proportion. So we start feeling like, God might not be that interested in us because we're not that important and we're not really that good. So we're kind of afraid to go to him. We could think we've done something so bad that God's not going to forgive us if we go to him in confession. Or we could just feel like what concerns us doesn't even interest God. I mean, he's pretty busy running the world and all, right? Right? He's pretty busy. So we could think maybe our little problems aren't so important to him. Of course, we're wrong. Totally. Completely. Of course, we can approach Jesus on our own because he so completely loves us. And he's so ready to forgive us. And he's just waiting for us to come and ask. But like I said, we can forget that. We forget that he's ready to listen and forgive us. And so having a mother on our side could really help us. That's why Jesus gave us his mother to be our mother too. And I want to read for you the words from the Gospel of John that tell us how Jesus gave us Mary to be our mother. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary of Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. The funny thing about the Apostle John, who wrote the fourth Gospel, he never calls himself John in his Apostle. John always shows up in his Apostle being called the beloved disciple, or the disciple Jesus loved. I think the reason he did that is so that you and I and all the people of the world, past, present, future, could see ourselves as that much-loved disciple, that beloved follower of Jesus. That way, we can hear Jesus speaking those words to us, directly to us. We can also hear Jesus telling Mary to look at us and behold her son or daughter. So it goes both ways. That's her job. That's her main occupation after the crucifixion of Jesus, is to be a mother to each of God's sons and daughters, just as she is mother to him, to Jesus. She's the perfect mother. As much as our earthly mothers love us, they can't love us perfectly. Sooner or later, they're going to let us down. We just can't love perfectly all the time. But Mary can, because even though she's human, she had no sin. So she has that ability to love us perfectly. Mary's whole job is to lead her spiritual children, each one of us, to her Son, to help us come to know him, to follow him, to obey him, and to ask him for his mercy and forgiveness. Just like the queen in our story did for Farmer Brown, so Mary goes with us to Jesus. She stands beside us, and she speaks up for us on our behalf. She puts in a good word for us to her Son. She takes what we have to offer God and dresses it up, just like the queen dressed up the apple in the story. Mary does that for us. And then, what is Jesus asking of us where his mother is concerned? We know what she'll do for us. What do we need to do for her? Well, like the Apostle John, we need to respond to her by taking her into our home, into our lives, making her a part of our life. Cultivating our relationship with her. Because if we get close to Mary, this is the same thing as getting close to Jesus. This is her whole job, is to make sure that happens. We have to let her be our mother, so that she can help us love and obey her Son. Tonight we're going to go in procession to pray the Rosary. That's Mary's beautiful prayer. It's our whole Catholic family's prayer. It's our prayer. It's part of Catholic life, and should always be part of our Catholic life. So I'm going to ask you this weekend, starting tonight with this procession and Rosary, to place yourself in Mary's hands as your mother. Take Mary into your home, the home of your heart. Ask her to lead you closer to her Son, Jesus, this weekend. Now, you may have come here with some worries, some concerns, some issues you're dealing with, some problems, and that's okay. Ask Mary to take those struggles to Jesus for you, and ask her to talk to him on your behalf. And know that she loves you. Know that she's with you. Know that she is going to go to Jesus for you when you ask her to. Because you are her sons and daughters. Mary knows that all the love and mercy Jesus has waiting for you this weekend is there for the asking. And she'll be with you as you grow closer to him. God bless you.